Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, there has been some harsh criticism of the whole debacle over Michael Matheson, and then the reshuffle and everything going on, and people who shouldn't be given power are being given power, being over-promoted. Other people have having their power concentrated and having even more responsibility. Although they're not able to do the current job, they're now getting like Neil Gray's old job as well. This is Mairi McAllan. Who's been handed Gray's old portfolio as well as her own. So rather than bringing in a new minister, they've just combined the two, which is okay, I suppose. It saves £100,000 a year in ministerial salaries. But you have to ask why Mairi McAllan is being sort of made very high profile now. And I'm sure it's got nothing to do with that little trip to Dubai, where they both arrived in separate planes and left in separate planes so that nobody realised what was going on. Well, it has upset people. A lot of people are complaining, and not just people from without the party, but also from within. And there are people within the SNP giving it some very colourful descriptions, as we shall see, not just of the whole thing, but also of Mairi McAllan herself, who's been branded Lorna Slater in a Yellow Rosette. Harsh words indeed. But that's the least of it. Let's take a look. Right, before we get into it, may I ask that you just check to see that you are still subscribed. YouTube does this random unsubscribe thing, and it's a real pain, but there's nothing I can do. And if you're yet to subscribe, now's an excellent time to hit that button. And while you're hitting the subscribe button, hit the like button. Both of the things massively help the channel. We're political, we get pushed down. And by subscribing, it gives us such a lift, way more than other channels because of that, the way that the algorithm works. So do give us a subscribe and we can help spread the word. Anyway, Mairi McAllan branded Lorna Slater in a Yellow Rosette as SNP figures bemoan a cluster F reshuffle. And who's been saying this? Well, senior SNP members. Let's just say unattributable, but from within the party. And it's not surprising, because it totally is. Humza Yousaf was forced to move around his top team on Thursday after the resignation of Michael Matheson, but it has not gone down well with all the Nats. Because, of course, the day before, he loses Elena Whittam. And I know I've cracked the gag before, but it is true. To lose one minister is considered unfortunate. To lose two seems like carelessness. And so Elena's gone, and now, of course, Matheson's gone. So Gray takes over the Matheson, and he's given all the rest of the power to the Saturday girl. But the Saturday girl really is massively over-promoted now. She also has got such a large portfolio, 2 departments, and I'm not sure she can cope. After all, it's only a few weeks ago, and she was brushing the hair out of the salon on a Saturday morning. And now she's got 2 portfolios to look after. It's a bit of a jump, isn't it? Anyway, senior SNP figures have been left raging at Humza Yousaf's handling of the Michael Matheson scandal and the subsequent cabinet reshuffle. This is according to reports. You shouldn't have put Neil Gray, a man who's barely knows anything about politics at all. He's only been a politician for 5 minutes. He's never had any kind of responsibility for anything that big or anything that complex. And you put him in charge of like the biggest single department without any kind of training, without any kind of experience. He was at energy and economic policy kind of thing. It's all tick box and push buttons and not really interacting with people. Health. There's millions of people. And he can't do it. He's not very good. Anyway, the First Minister was forced to make major changes to his top team after Matheson quit as Health Secretary following his iPad data bill scandal and the revelation that he turns out to be a bit of a liar, a fraudster, and an all-round tosser. The way he threw his kids under the bus didn't really help the image, did it? Yousaf ally Neil Gray was moved to the health brief, promoting movement elsewhere in the government. Mairi McAllan was handed a beefed-up role as Cabinet Secretary for Wellbeing, Economy, Net Zero and Energy, comprising some of Mr Gray's old roles. So she has her own job, plus about 2/3 of what Gray was doing as well. So presumably she's up for it. But again, she's someone who hasn't really got a lot of experience. She's not knowledgeable, never had a real job, doesn't interact well. All she's got going for her is, I suppose, she's fairly good looking, and Humza likes a good squeeze every now and again, allegedly. Hislop was promoted to Transport Secretary, which means that she can drive to Greggs a bit quicker, while Corcab Stewart became the new International Development Minister. How very strange that someone like Corcab Stewart is handed international development. We all know exactly where that development will be internationally pushed, don't we? Jim Fairley became Minister for Ag and Connectivity, and that is a terrible... Jim Fairley is a terrible human being, which I'm not even going to go into. We know, but I don't want to sort of put the kibosh on anything else. But Fairley is a fairly awful human being. While Christine McKelvey was switched to the key role of Drugs and Alcohol Policy Minister after Alina Whittam stepped down for health reasons. She was sick of working with Humza Yousaf. That's failed to impress some of the senior party members, unhappy at how the situation has panned out. Well, a lot here. There's a lot of senior party members and backbenchers and junior party members and members in the street who are not very happy at the moment. Certainly not with the lack of leadership, certainly not with the choices that Humza Yousaf is making, certainly not when you look at the people he's giving power to, people who are quite unsuitable, and yet blanking other people who they think would be better in the job. We all know who that is, Kate Forbes. And it's upsetting a lot of people in the party. And I think this is partially why there are rumours and murmurs and motions going through that will remove Humza Yousaf as leader very, very soon. They've had enough of it. And they know that he is an electoral liability. People don't like him. Even his own party don't like him. What hope is there? One SNP MP, though, was fuming to see McAllan handed extra responsibilities, branding her, Lorna Slater, with a Yellow Rosette. Now, presumably because Lorna Slater is one hell of a loser who fails at everything. Every policy she's ever had has been a failure, and it's been an expensive failure. And more, it's been a spectacular failure. So everybody has seen her failures. Everybody knows. And, Mairi McAllan is much the same. No success, no ability, no knowledge, no experience, and yet given all this power. It's weird, isn't it? Anyway, this senior SNP member said that the entire cabinet reshuffle was a cluster duck. He didn't say duck. Scottish Green co-leader Miss Slater has faced severe criticism for her performance as Circular Economy Minister, whatever that means. However, one of McAllan's friends said that the view may have been based on misogyny, adding, "This sounds like sour grapes, particularly given Mairi is a young, attractive female." Oh yes, that's very important in a role, isn't it? We'd like to see that when you're given an area of responsibility, that it doesn't matter that you know anything about it, that you've got any expertise or you've got any experience. It's only important that you're young, attractive and female. Now, and unless you are working in a strip joint, they ain't the kind of attributes you need in a job. What you need is knowledge, experience and skill. Goes to say what people think is important about the Saturday girl then. I'm young and I'm pretty. Useless. Anyway, others have also bemoaned the lack of the role for Kate Forbes in the new team. Now, despite all the awfulness of Kate Forbes, and there is a lot to be awful about, I will grant you, she is at least intelligent and she is a bit more experienced. And that does count. Anyway, Miss Forbes is seen as a leadership rival of Mr. Yousaf. She's the next leader. With the snub said to have upset allies of the former Finance Secretary. And another source told the Times the correct political move would have been to appoint Forbes as Health Secretary and simultaneously uniting the party in parliamentary terms and appointing his greatest rival to an extremely difficult but senior job. I think if he'd have offered it, I think she would have refused. And I think if she accepted it, she would have had to have gone in and accepted cabinet collective responsibility, which means she couldn't speak out against him, and that the only way out of the role would be resignation. Whereas if she refuses the role, she maintains her dignity, sits on the back benches and can continue to snipe and build a power base, and is not beholden to Yousaf. And I think that is why she would have refused the role. And of course, having refused the role, if he'd have offered her the role and she'd have refused it, he would have known immediately, right then, bang, leadership challenge is on the cards. He only suspects it. But if she'd have refused the role, he'd know it. And I think that is why he didn't offer. Anyway, if she succeeds, it will benefit your administration, they said, and if she doesn't, it will damage her leadership prospects. And the reshuffle, that's the other reason, of course. And the reshuffle only came about because Matheson finally quit his cabinet secretary role, having been embroiled over lies and fraud and all the bollocks over his iPad. Opponents have been calling for him to quit for months, but Yousaf stuck by the Falkirk MSP. And one former cabinet minister said, "You have to give the appearance of being in control." And Hamza simply hasn't done that. Day one, if it was Nippy was in the charge, day one, bang. He'd been dragged in that office, she'd have been sat down in front of her, and she'd say, "Look, here's how it is. You're walking out that door, and you're no longer the minister. How you walk out that door is up to you. You're either I fire you, or you resign." And that's what a leader does. Hamza's no leader, isn't he? Anyway, he said 3 months ago, they said, there was a case for not giving in immediately to the hyenas, but at that point he had to find out the truth and then make a judgment. If he'd got to the bottom of it in November, after a couple of weeks, the FM could have said, "Look, Michael, I don't want to lose some of your competence, but we have to recognise you've made a mistake. Say you're sorry, step down, in a year or so I'll bring you back." But instead he waited until the eve of publication for the resignation, and of course that was it. Just round off here, Professor Mitchell, the chair of public policy at Edinburgh University, has also questioned Mr. Yousaf's decision to support Mr. Matheson for so long. And he said the belated resignation of Matheson exemplifies weak leadership from Humza Yousaf. This has been allowed to drag on with a lame duck health minister at a time when, as he states in the resignation letter, there is a need for major reform in the NHS. In other words, the NHS is falling apart. He's not up for the job, but he's hung on because that man is quite incapable of being a leader. But then hands an awful lot of power to the Saturday girl, who he likes to spend a lot of time with in hotels in the Middle East, well away from his wife, or his current wife, as we call her. Coming up. As time goes on, it becomes increasingly clear and totally evident to anyone who's looking in that Yousaf is not a leader. He lacks authority. There's nobody in the party that sort of looks at him and goes, "Yeah, okay, that sounds great to me." Everyone double checks what he says. Everyone looks to see that what he's saying is right. He doesn't believe, I think, half the things he's saying. He's very divisive, not just within the country, but within his own party. And he's living on borrowed time, and everybody knows it. And I think even he knows it. Stay there. Just stay there as long as you can. Really. The longer he stays in power, the better. Although, you could argue that you've got 2.5 years before the next Holyrood election. Would it not be better to have someone competent and sane in charge? Possibly. The argument goes both ways. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit that subscribe button as I ask. It's really, really important to the channel. Leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Thank you. Bye.